You're locked in to the hottest station on the planet.
Resistance is futile. The revolution has begun.
You're listening to Rebelpreneur Radio, helping you break the rules and build the business you need for the life you want. And now, broadcasting his pirate signal
from somewhere beyond the status quo,
here's your host, best-selling author, marketing and media strategist, Ralph Brogden.
Hello and welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio. It's the show that helps you build the business you need so you can live the life you want. I'm Ralph Brogden. So let's talk about life and work balance. I've had guests on and everyone has a different opinion. Some have given up on the idea of life and work balance and other people have not. My personal take on it is that you want to build the business you need so that you can live the life that you want, and you shouldn't let your business become your life. That's my approach. That's how I look at it, and that's how I manage my life and my business so that they are relatively in balance. But I think that this is something that all entrepreneurs and all rebelpreneurs struggle with. So how can we achieve life and work balance, especially if we are women, which I am not, but I'm married to a lovely woman and I have 2 daughters. And so how do women in particular find that life and work balance, especially in a society that does not necessarily encourage that, especially among women? Today's guest is going to help us get to the bottom of this. I'm speaking with Michelle Bourque. She is a sales professional and a certified life coach leading positive change to empower growth and development for women in the corporate world. She is the founder of Michelle Bourque Coaching, and she specializes in helping women design balance for their lives in order to let go of the stress and overwhelm. Michelle, welcome to Rebelpreneur Radio.
Thank you so much for having me here today, Ralph.
How did you get started in coaching, and specifically what got you interested in life and work balance for women?
I think it was, I have been in the sales and corporate world for over 20 years, and I just got to a point that it was the anxiety and the overwhelm. And I was at a point where I felt like my job just controlled my life. And about 3 years ago, I actually just started listening to a podcast, and it piqued my interest, the Life Coach School podcast with Brooke Castillo. And she was offering coach training. And at the time, I thought, I don't have another minute. But there was something inside of me that I have just been telling myself for so long, there has to be something more. And don't get me wrong, my life was pretty good, but I just felt like there had to be something more as far as me being able to take control of my life. And so, I went in and I ended up getting the coach certification. And now I love to help women who are in the corporate world find new ways to really help reduce the stress and anxiety and overwhelm. And it's interesting. I don't even know that they find the balance, right? Like we did talk about finding it, but I think it's more, you have to design the balance.
Yeah. I like that. That's a powerful distinction. It's like trying to find the time. You'll never find the time. You have to make the time. So you're saying we have to design life and work balance, kind of like I'm saying, build the business you need to, so you can live the life that you want. That's doing it by intention, doing it by design.
I thought that was so perfect. A lot of the women that I work with, they are high achieving individuals and they're looking for that balance. So I'm not even talking, I think along the lines of what you're speaking to. It's not this perfect 50-50. I think it's like what works for you in your life.
That's a powerful thought. I think a lot of people do have the idea that work-life balance means 50-50. The numbers don't even add up, do they? But if I'm spending, because we spend roughly a third of our time at work, 2/3 of our time someplace else than work on average. Maybe if we are self-employed, we might put in more hours than 40 a week. But it doesn't have to be that cut and dry. Balance does not mean equally measured out, does it?
Correct. And I think too, a lot of the times what happens is while you're at work, there's this nagging voice in our head that tells us that we should be more at home or there's something that we left undone. And then when you're at home, it's the opposite. So it's truly like, if you're not being intentional, right? Yeah. Like what is that number and where is that time?
Yeah. I have noticed that in myself. Not so much now that I work for myself, it's not as pronounced, but I caught myself when I'm in a project thinking I need to be working on this instead of that. And then I get over into that and I'm thinking, well, I should be working on this other thing and not this. And so I really had to learn to be mindful and focused on what I'm doing in the moment, because as an entrepreneur, as a rebelpreneur, a solopreneur, a business owner, the temptation is to try and do everything at once, and we end up getting overwhelmed. When we divide our lives between work and life, and we try to achieve this unrealistic expectation, it can also create a lot of stress and overwhelm, can't it?
Yes. And I think that is so important, because I see so many women with the anxiety and the stress and the overwhelm because they just have that voice that continues to tell them they're not enough. Like, it's not enough, no matter what it is that's going on. And really doing this work to design and set your priorities with intention makes all of the difference, because there's so much wasted time that we indulge in that anxiety and worry and overwhelm. And once we can like prioritize and stick to the priorities and plan accordingly, it just brings such a greater sense of peace. And that's really the work that I love to share with these women. You can still excel at your career, but it doesn't have to be at the expense of your personal life.
Yes, yes. Very important. Tell us more about those women that you help. Who is your ideal prospect?
So the women that I'd love to work with are these high achieving, like I had mentioned, women who I almost lovingly call them our people pleasing perfectionists. But really, They are someone who continues to really want to do well at the career, knows that there can be more, but struggles because, like, at the end of the day, they're trying to get the kids together and they are still thinking about the projects left undone. It's just this feeling a lot of times with them of a scatteredness, or like not all of the loose ends are tied up. And that just runs day after day after day.
So, and I want to get your thoughts on how women can design that balance for themselves. But first, let me get your thought on, is this problem, or let me back up. Why is this a problem for women in particular? You're focusing on women. And I, based on my experience and the other people that I talk to, this seems to be a bigger issue for women than it is for men, generally speaking. But why is that? What are the social expectations that make it more challenging for women to design work and life balance compared to men?
I think a lot of times it's what we have grown up to learn, that we're there to like help everyone and to make sure everyone else is taken care of. And oftentimes it's ourselves that get put last on that list of priorities, right? And it's this idea that if you do that, then it's a little selfish and you should be thinking about the others that are around you that need to have your help. So a lot of these women, it's oftentimes like they're trying to be everything to everyone. So it's the same mindset at work. They're trying to people please or trying to just prove, help. And it's always at the expense of like, I'll take the last, whatever's left over. Mm-hmm. And oftentimes when I start to suggest some of this, like, I mean, even when I speak of self-care, it's not like bubble baths and massages necessarily. It's just like taking the time to prioritize, right? Like simple things like being able to get a workout in, something that will help everyone around you when you can just take a little bit of time for yourself. But I think it just hasn't been something along the lines that we're grown up, as a way of thinking and learning and behaving.
Yeah, because I based on your response, it doesn't sound like men are held to that same standard. They're kind of held to a standard that says, I've got to go out and provide, I got to produce, and it's okay for me to spend 60 hours a week. And I just don't hear that concern for life and work balance coming from men Because it's a very different set of social expectations, men and women, isn't it?
And it's so interesting too. Like even in my corporate world, we talk about this, how so many times men, if there's like an opportunity for a promotion, a male is very quick to say like, yes, throw me in the hat. I'm all in. And then it's like, well, wait, what was the job exactly? Where women, on the other hand, want to make sure like every box is checked. They want to make sure that it's all perfect before I actually put my name in and, raise my hand for this. So it's totally a different mindset. You are absolutely correct.
So what's the biggest challenge with the people that you help, the women that you help, to get them where they need to be mentally, emotionally, to where they can take care of themselves without stressing themselves out? Is there a big problem that you see over and over again that it seems like you always have to deal with in order to make progress with the client?
I think the one thing that I hear so often is this idea of anxiety that just runs throughout the day, and it's the negative self-talk that happens so often when women are beating themselves up that it's just never quite enough, like whatever the goal is that they're working on. And it's really hard to find a sense of balance if in her mind it's never enough, right? Like just last week, I finished up with one of my corporate gals, our initial 12 weeks together, and she was reflecting on how much she has changed. And the first thing that she noted was how much less anxiety she was feeling. And I think that makes all of the difference, because when you can take the energy and time that the anxiety or the stress or the overwhelm, whatever the word is for you, that sucks out of you, and then place it into something that really matters to you, I think that's when you start to begin designing your balance. And even in the short amount of time that we were working together, she's taken on a new leadership role in her corporate job. She's increased her responsibilities within her current role. She was talking about how she doesn't stress as much about her daughter. And for me, I think the most amazing part is showing up as a role model, because when her daughter can see that at an early age, right, when we talk about what we learn, so if her daughter can see that early, that to me is everything, like the ripple effect that it will have in the lives of more people than even I maybe know directly in my conversation. That's the fun part.
Yeah. Very powerful results. And thank you for sharing that story, because it helps to illustrate just how important this is. This is a major thing in our lives. And if we can handle it, if we can find that balance, then we can, or not find it. I'm still trying to say find it. If we can design the balance, be intentional. We have to be intentional about creating that balance, don't we?
Absolutely. And I think it's just offering yourself the gift of giving yourself the time to start, right? Because it's always like, no, I'm too busy. And that was me. I totally get it. But you will find so much more time. Like when I'm working with these women, you find so much more time when you just, like you said, become more intentional and purposeful in designing it.
So what can women do? And I guess any of our listeners could do this, but what would you suggest as some first steps in the right direction towards self-care, towards designing the life and work balance, reducing stress and overwhelm? What can we do to begin moving in the right direction?
I think one of the most eye-opening activities is to just take 10 to 15 minutes and write down all of your priorities in life. And then once you've done that, you go back and chart your last 24 hours. So write down everything you did and you account for every minute. And then look at how the two lists compares. And sometimes it is astonishing how different they are, because awareness really is the first step to any of this work. And I think what happens is we so often just let the day happen to us. But what we need to do is begin setting priorities and scheduling our time with purpose, like you said, and in advance to align with those priorities. It
makes a lot of sense. As I think about this, and again, applying it to my project management. That's a very interesting exercise. Take 10 to 15 minutes, write down your priorities, and then account for the last 24 hours what you've actually been working on. And when I do that consistently, that's a good thought to write down. I've never thought about writing it down, and I am a writer and I journal all the time. But mentally, as I go through my projects and my priorities, I see very often my number one most important priority is the very last thing that ends up getting done because everybody else's projects come first. So I'm kind of experiencing this in a small way with project management. What you're saying is this also applies to life and work design.
I think so, and I think you're onto something. I used to always have a to-do list, or in my head, I knew what I thought I wanted to do, but then sometimes there's these fire drills that go off, and you feel like you have to take care of that. What I found so super helpful was, instead of a to-do list, writing down with specific time frames attached to it, like what each step was or is going to be in my day. So every night, the night before, I will take 10 minutes and just literally on my calendar put time frames with each item that I need to accomplish, because then my brain is super focused on making sure that I stick to that plan and I know how much time I'm allowing for it, right? And then I just have the focus, as opposed to, well, this is coming up and it seems more important. I think once you can actually put it on the calendar with a time frame and a time limit, that's when the magic happens.
Very important. And I think that time limit is very important. What I had to begin doing is saying, okay, I'm going to set aside 60 minutes or 90 minutes or whatever, and I'm going to do the most important thing first, get it done. And then I've got more flexibility in the rest of the day to work on other things, but I know that I have scheduled my most important thing first. And I think Stephen Covey was using that example of putting the big rocks in the jar first, and then the smaller rocks, and then the sand. Because if you try to put the small things in the jar first, you're not going to have time left over to put the big things in. So it's not about trying to see how much we can cram into the jar. We all have the same hours in a day, but it's about getting first things first, setting the priorities, and then structuring our day so that the most important things are done first. Very powerful idea, Michelle. What are you working on right now that's got you really excited that you'd like to share with our listeners as you're taking these concepts and principles and you are putting them to work and getting your message out to the world?
Well, I really love working with my one-on-one clients, and I would say it's so much fun to actually see them in a very specialized program that we have. But I also have a free 5-day course. If just head to my website, MichelleBourqueCoaching.com, and that is someplace where people can get even some more free, pieces of information to start working on designing their balance. I love it. Yes.
So we'll have that link on the website, on our website, but the link is MichelleBourqueCoaching.com. You have an interesting spelling to your name, so it's not the way it sounds. It's Michelle Bourque, and that's Bourque, coaching.com. So very, very exciting to see what you're doing in the space and to hear your thoughts on how we can design that life and work balance, especially for women who are overwhelmed, overworked, stressed out, usually on the receiving end of very unrealistic expectations from other people, and therefore they attach unrealistic expectations to themselves. So it's really exciting that there's people like you in the world that are making a difference. Any final thoughts or words of wisdom that you'd like to leave our listeners with?
I love to remind myself that everything in life is a choice, and it doesn't always feel like it, but I just think that gives us all the power. So when we think that we don't have a choice, we are just a victim to all of it, and then we can't make the changes, but we always have a choice, and we truly get to choose how we want to design a life that we love.
I love that. So that's great wisdom. You get to decide how you want to live your life. Design with intention the life that you want, the business that you need to give you that life, or the career choices that you need to give you the life that you want. Very well said. Michelle Bourque is a sales professional and a certified life coach leading positive change to empower growth and development for women in the corporate world. She is the founder of Michelle Bourque Coaching, and she specializes in helping women design balance for their lives in order to let go of stress and overwhelm. You can connect with her at MichelleBourqueCoaching.com. And like I said, we'll have that link on the Rebelpreneur website as well. Michelle, it's been a real pleasure to get to know you. Thank you so much for your work, and I appreciate you being on the show today.
Thank you so much. I appreciate you.
You've been listening to Rebelpreneur Radio with Ralph Brogden. Download the show notes and much more at Rebelpreneur.com.